Breaking news: giant attack. Estimated to be possibly 300 to 500 meters in height, Breaking News is a Monster by Trevor Henderson. In the image, it seems to have oversized arms possibly reaching to the ground and a torso that is longer than its legs. It appears to be faceless. It appeared, one of the largest and most obvious signs to humanity that things are beyond the norm. This would have revealed everything to everyone. The obvious clue that humans weren't alone out there. Worse, that we are pretty edible to those things that rested in the dark. That probably would have been preferable to what happened instead. In the course of a single night, every person died. Something about this giant, something about its very presence, caused the bodily functions of all human beings within an almost 15-mile radius to suddenly cease. It wasn't a heart attack or a stroke. All at once, every single organ just stopped functioning. Without warning, their bodies fell. People on phone calls, on stream, even operating vehicles. They all dropped dead. That everyone died at the same time was the only thing preventing more deaths and injuries in the ensuing chaos. If that was it, things could have been settled. The agency could have faked a terrorist attack and shifted the blame onto people who probably deserved the resulting drone strike anyway. But the giant moved. The colossal creature was mobile, and every step it took caused damage. Its aura of death followed it, taking lives with each step. Plus, the creature's mass was fully manifested in this world. This was no ephemeral apparition, but a gigantic, physical body that wrought destruction with each step and left a trail of damage in its wake. Roads broken, forests toppled and crushed, and homes shattered. This was also the first appearance of such a creature, so there was no established policy to counter it. There was no warning either from any of the agency's seers or precogs. No warning, and such a nasty situation. For the first time in nearly a century, the agency had to put out an all-hands-on-deck alert. Every field agent was redirected from their current assignments. Every researcher's existing projects were put on hold. And, most importantly, every cleanup crew was called in. There were around 1,000 bodies that needed to be cleaned up and quietly vanished. Suicide notes were written. Long-term friendships were shattered online and, where possible, memories were erased. There is no doubt that things slipped through the many cracks. It's a certainty that, even now, there are people investigating the disappearance of their loved ones. People who will relentlessly pursue the situation until our cleanup crews can get to them. It has to be one of the worst jobs the agency has ever had to execute. A failure on all counts. Stopping the giant itself was another nightmare. At 472 meters tall, composed of an unknown material, and with an aura that killed anyone who got close, combating it was a nightmare. The standard field agent's kit had nothing that could even scratch this thing. Right away, we had to use military ordnance. Rocket launchers, attack helicopters, and fighter jets, the whole 9 yards. It took heavy machine gun fire and missiles to actually harm the giant. And, unlike other creatures of this size, this thing was fully manifested on our plane. It was completely organic, and it could feel pain. Like any other creature that is attacked, the giant defended itself. Stomping the ground, rushing towards those attacking it. A massive retreating action was staged, inflicting damage all the while, because getting too close was death. Then there was the screaming. When the giant was in pain, it made a noise. A horrible, unearthly keening that transcended mere sound. All who heard it were struck with terrible headaches, nosebleeds, and nightmares. The nightmares were the worst. They weren't of normal things. They were of other dimensional horrors and concepts the human brain wasn't meant to understand. It took luck and a lot of prayer, in addition to overwhelming force, but eventually our attack teams were able to inflict enough damage to first bring it to its knees, and finally to kill it. Things weren't over, because we still had to deal with the body, and the thing's kill aura took a full month to fade away completely. It meant that people couldn't approach it, and, as it rotted, foreign parasites escaped from its body and escaped into the wild. It made things much worse, as not only did the teams have their hands full with the giant, but the foreign elements infected other creatures. These things ended up causing mutations and triggered spawning cycles in already dangerous things. And, worse, woke other things out of hibernation. But dealing with the body of the giant took priority. Not only to keep people from the area to prevent them from dying, there was also the task of breaking down the body piece by piece and transporting it away for storage, research, and disposal. Even now, where its blood splashed onto the ground, the earth is poisoned. Nothing grows where the giant bleeds, and people will get sick for a long time just from being near the corrosive substance. All in all, it's been an absolute nightmare that still hasn't resolved itself. There is no clue as to what triggered the giant's arrival, or what consequences we will face for our actions encountering it. For now, consider the agency to be on high alert. Post-report. Extra information has come to light after things calmed down some and we were able to tally resources. Missing agents, destroyed bases, and incidents that were only recently reported. They were all connected. In the aftermath of the giant incident, with the vast loss of life, with the number of mutated creatures that ran rampant, with the unknown world almost exposed to the entire mundane world, all the agency can do is ask the question, why did this happen? It took time, luck, and lives, but the truth was eventually discovered. The giant did not simply arrive that day. It was not a random event. No, with the last of the reports that came in before the incident, we now know what happened. The giant was called. It was summoned into this world, and the lives of all those people lie at the feet of the summoners. The Siren Heads. The agency was only aware of one, which is in our files. That creature tends to stick to forests and isolated places. It likes to lure people into isolated areas using the voices of friends, family and loved ones, where it will then brutally murder them. Basically, by blocking off forests and the small abandoned towns, Siren Head could be isolated. In this way, we could reduce the number of its victims. Why we didn't wonder if there were more is a regretful mistake, and one that will haunt us for a long time. So, there are multiple Siren Heads out there. Most of them are malicious and highly dangerous. Especially the 4 that called the giant and caused this whole mess. All 4 must be found, and all means available to us must be used to destroy them. This cannot be allowed to happen again. It turns out that all 4 have been the subjects of active investigations, and each has resulted in the death of an agent before this whole thing started. Their reports and their body cams have been recovered from their bodies. It's the only way we know about these extra creatures.